and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by the man who taught Diego Simeone how to celebrate a goal. His name is Taylor Rockwell.
Hello, I should yes and you, but I have to say I don't believe I have ever celebrated a goal or anything in my life the way Diego Simeone celebrated that first goal.
We won't describe it. You can go see it for yourself.
Yeah, he pointed to his reproductive organs.
He did, and I think he was...
Or he outlined them, I guess is a better way to put it.
I think he was exaggerating.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a chance. I feel like you didn't have that one planned because I think I saw your eyes go up as if to try to come up with one on the fly. And if so, that was well done.
Are you Samuel L. Jackson in The Negotiator?
Yeah, and I always forget which way you're supposed to look. And I think that's also been debunked since. Shocking that a Samuel L. Jackson movie from the 90s hasn't held up in terms of being accurate for negotiation.
I'd say shocking that a Kevin Spacey movie hasn't held up.
Yeah. Moving on.
Should we talk Champions League?
Let's do it.
We were blessed with goals today. Yeah. Spoiler alert,
Yeah.
just in case you haven't seen it. It finished Atletico Madrid 2, Juventus 0.
It sure did.
3-0 if you listen to Alvaro Morata.
Yeah.
It also finished Schalke 2, Manchester City 3. We're going to discuss them in that order.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's start with Atletico versus Juventus.
Sure.
All right, maybe we'll get to the goals later. 2 set-piece goals from Atletico, both from centre-backs. I enjoyed seeing the centre-backs.
Very Atleti. Very Atleti.
Almost into the stands, which is almost a problem, but isn't quite. Which seems like a very Atletico thing.
It's a good way to avoid that yellow.
Yeah. Before we talk the goals, I want to say I think Atletico and Diego Simeone and his players got this right tactically by doing basically what they're good at. And Juventus and Allegri and Ronaldo specifically got this wrong tactically.
I would agree.
Is that a fair summary of the game?
I think it absolutely is because fair to say that we have not seen Atleti in and out this entire season, but our expectation of them is and kind of always has been since Simeone's been there. It's going to be a 4-4-2. They're going to be very
narrow, compact,
exactly.
Disciplined.
They're going to be difficult to break down, difficult to play through. And I think one thing you can do if you're playing against that is try to pull them apart. You try to maybe get the possession established, and then you move from left to right to left. You have players kind of moving around a little bit.
Stretch the field horizontally.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think what you have to have with that in mind is that it has to be planned. Because if you're just sort of we'll improv jazz this one and then it should all work, then you're sort of counting on individual moments and individual efforts to break down a very disciplined and well-drilled team. And I think that's what kind of set Juve up to fail in this one, is that it felt like it was a Ronaldo drifts wherever he wants and pops up wherever he wants. Everyone else adjusts to it and they kind of play off of him, but he's the leader of the improv. Yeah. But I don't think it worked very well because in the end...
It's like when an improv team has a star and everybody... Not that we're improv experts, but we've seen some, right? And everybody leans too heavily on the star and they're almost there to set up the star.
Yeah.
And maybe the entire performance suffers as a result.
Yeah, actually, I think that's...
Especially if you're up against a really disciplined audience who refuses to laugh.
Yeah, but man, that's a pretty good analogy because it is the case that if you have Ryan Stiles suddenly in your amateur improv group, you're going to be looking to him and whatever he does, you're going to play off of. Yeah. Whereas if you have it more balanced, then it is going to be everybody kind of playing their own role and contributing equally, and that makes it better overall. Yeah. But if it's just Ryan Stiles, or Ronaldo in this case, then what a topical reference, huh?
In this situation, have things gone very badly for Ryan Stiles, or has the amateur improv group just suddenly decided to spend big?
I think he's doing a Bill Murray in this scenario, where he's just popping up, performing, and trying to help out the local improv scene.
Yeah.
Yes,
nice.
Yes.
Maybe you could turn up here in Richmond.
Yeah, why not? But in this case, it did just seem, I think you and I were consistently frustrated by Ronaldo, not just that he was kind of moving all over, because as I said, you need a little bit of that fluidity and flexibility to cause problems for Atleti.
Yeah.
But the difference here was that it felt like he kept popping up, and it was almost like, oh, now he's standing next to Mandzukic, and Mandzukic then was like, oh, I guess I'll go stand in the middle, and then he would drift to the middle, and then Mandzukic was like, okay, I guess I'll go back to the left, and it just felt like it was a lot of playing off of him without much structure.
I keep thinking Mandzukic. We need to focus on soccer and not improv here.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Maybe it's worth describing to people what the nominal or theoretical shape of Juventus was. I would call it a 4-3-3, and the front three was Cristiano Ronaldo on the left, at least in the graphic, Mario Mandzukic, not Jason Mandzukic, centre forward, and Paulo Dybala as on the right wing, wearing number 10 and looking very unhappy about it.
Yes, yeah, but then sometimes I think that you're correct. First of all, I think that was like nominally the approach, but it did feel, as the commentator said in like the first 15 seconds, is expect Ronaldo to kind of pop up and try to make plays.
Yeah,
and it was that from the outset, but it didn't feel, as I said before, it didn't feel like there was any plan to it. It didn't feel like they had sort of rehearsed if Ronaldo drops central, then Mandzukic goes here, Dybala drops in here, and suddenly they kind of have sequences and they have patterns of play,
which is
to
like
build
Benzema.
off of.
We talked about this during the game, right? Benzema and Ronaldo in the sort of the heyday of their relationship at Real Madrid, there would be like a synchronized. Ronaldo comes in from the left as Benzema drifts wide, and it confuses the defenders because it all happens in the moment because they're doing it at the same time. It's fast and it's synchronized and it's confusing. This instead looked to me more like Ronaldo would very slowly wander into Mandzukic's centre forward area. Mandzukic would very nicely see it and be like, oh, I guess Ronaldo's moved into my house. I've got to go and live next door.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Then Mandzukic would wander out to the wing. And it just all happens so slowly. Like, Godin's not young, but he's certainly young enough to keep track of that, right? So it didn't cause Godin, Jimenez, the two midfielders in front, what was it, Rodri and Thomas Partey to begin with? It didn't cause them any trouble at all.
Yeah, and I think a very good example of that is the fact that I would say Juve's two best chances, or really their only two good chances, were both free kicks. It was one in the beginning of the game, one at the very end of the game, and those are the ones where they kind of, especially the second one, they kind of had it rehearsed where it was the drop back for Bernardeschi to hit.
Yes.
That felt like a rehearsed pattern of play.
That was a good use of Ronaldo as well, right? Because his body shape and the fact that he's Ronaldo and everything said, oh, Ronaldo's going to shoot from this weird angle. So everybody was ready for that, including Oblak, I believe.
Yep.
And they squared it back to Bernardeschi. And if he'd maybe caught that shot a bit better, the element of surprise would have been enough, I think, for a Juve goal.
Yeah. And so the other key moment that stands out when it comes to Ronaldo was the 49th minute. I think we kind of went back and broke this down a little bit. He basically gets the ball, turns, and shoots from like 35, 40 yards out.
He's like centre-right channel.
Yeah, but if you go back and look, he's clearly meant to be the central forward at that point. But because he's dropped in all the way, he's basically standing next to De Sciglio, who's made a run forward. Yeah. And now he gets the ball and turns, and there's no one in front of him. So all he can either do is recycle possession, and Atleti do a good job of kind of making that not look like a very alluring option. So instead he shoots. And I do think that him sort of moving all around, then he doesn't kind of know where anybody else is in relation to him once he does get that ball. Whereas, again, I don't mean to keep like beating a dead horse here, but if Dybala knows, okay, Ronaldo's dropped in, now I need to make the run through the middle so that when Ronaldo turns, he's got Dybala at full speed, he can play that ball through. But if you don't have that, then it's him turning, looking around, and then firing a shot into the stands because nothing else is on.
So this seems to, we haven't watched that much Serie A, right? Maybe David Moyes, for example, would be a good person to tell us about this. I'm going to assume that this Ronaldo popping up free roll type thing has been working in Serie A. At least Juventus are top of Serie A, right?
Yeah.
They're doing just fine as per usual.
Yeah, checks out.
Right.
13 points ahead. Yeah, they're doing all right.
I would argue that maybe my best guess is, based on watching this game, is that because of that Atletico 4-4-2 discipline, right? They're the audience that won't laugh. They're the audience that won't move. That's what made it so hard, right? Is that normally maybe one of the centre-backs like Jimenez or Godin would have been tempted to step out or to go with him when he goes wide, or maybe Juan Fran would get confused because suddenly there's no left winger. Because Atletico have been, under years for Simeone, being coached to hold this shape, don't let any space appear. It just had no impact on them. It's almost like they just didn't notice it.
It really...
Or they noticed it but didn't care and didn't react, so don't get pulled apart.
Yeah, it did feel like I'm here now. What will you do? Oh, you don't care. Okay, all right, well then I'll keep moving. But here's my other question, because in a game where Atleti find a way to get those two goals, they win, it's a very good game for them. It seems like we're focusing on Ronaldo, and I do wonder... Like I talked with David Amoyal about this a little bit when he was on the show, but like I do wonder if the looming allegations against Ronaldo factor into how we view him, because I do think if there's not the tax case that's just been settled for 21 million or whatever, and then the rape allegations as well, if those aren't there, are we as critical of Ronaldo, or does that stuff kind of filter into the way we watch the game?
I think we're as critical.
Yeah,
because I think this is about. First of all, it's about how Juventus use their star player, and I would argue in this case, not wisely. Like in hindsight, I bet if Allegri could replay this game, maybe he would ask Ronaldo, please just play left wing, right? Hold that position, we'll get you the ball, you can attack from there and combine from there, not go wherever you feel like you're most effective. Because if that was the situation, and I think it was, right? Like there's no way Allegri was micromanaging Ronaldo's various positional drifting.
No.
It's Ronaldo making decisions to try and influence the game and absolutely failing. The only influence he had on the game was to reduce the impact of Mario Mandzukic, right? Because he can't be used as a target man because he keeps getting shunted out wide and having to do defensive work. Reduce the impact of Paulo Dybala because he's frustrated. He's out on the wing. He wants to be central. He wants to be the playmaker. So yeah, I think it's more just the use of your best player, both from the coach and from the player himself, failing to impact the game.
Yeah, and I think with that in mind...
It's not even a personality failing. Like, I'm not calling him selfish or anything like that. It's more just that it's some bad tactical decisions.
Yeah, I think you're right, like in that it's not necessarily selfish, but I think it's the kind of dilemma of Ronaldo in that because he is this player who, like, he's going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and he's going to go and score a goal from 35 yards out.
Yeah.
And like, if it works and if he is popping up and causing all these problems or theoretically causing problems and then he scores the goal, there's Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He stands out and he makes that game change. But if it doesn't, then it looks like, oh, there's Ronaldo demanding the ball. And then when it doesn't go well, talking about how he's won 5 Champions Leagues and Atletico have won nil.
What's that story all about?
I think when he was getting like criticized, I think the fans were singing at him about, they sang Ronaldo pay your taxes, and he held up 5 to indicate the number of Champions Leagues he'd won, I believe.
Or to indicate his tax rate.
or that. Well, that would just be he'd hold up 0, I think. And then I think he said it to the press as well when he left the mix zone. That was like his only comment was like 5-0, and he held up 5 and 0.
I see.
There you go.
To indicate what his tax rate should be.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's talk about the goals that Atletico Madrid did score. Both from set pieces, both scored by central defenders, both scored after an initial contact where Juve failed to clear the ball.
Yeah.
Interesting parallels, right?
Should we start with the first one first?
Yeah, let's do that.
I wanted to do a little Pert Hapley in there.
Yeah, so Jimenez scores the first one after a
vicious attack on Leonardo Bonucci.
Well, there's the Morata knockdown, which is important. Maybe we'll talk about the Morata disallowed goal later on. There's a Morata knockdown. Jimenez, in the build-up to this, pushes Chiellini, right?
Definitely pushes
Gets
Chiellini.
away from him. Then sort of almost like swims over the top of Bonucci, and his hand makes contact with Bonucci's cheek.
Here's what I think. If I were giving Jimenez like the benefit of the doubt here, I would say he kind of does the little shove off of Chiellini to create separation, and he does that to push himself back towards like the back post.
Yeah.
And when he does that, he doesn't realize that Bonucci is behind him. So when he's turning, he hits Bonucci. And I think this is where I think it was completely accidental, is because he bumps into Bonucci and then almost he does kind of like shove him down.
Yeah.
But it's more of a like, oh, you're in my way, as opposed to like, haha, I'm gaining an advantage.
It's just I'm scrapping for the ball kind of situation.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff happens on corner kicks all the time.
Yes,
I would argue.
And I really think this is, for as like heroic of a defender and as strong of a defender as Bonucci is, this is pretty weak defending, because
this is maybe the worst thing I've ever seen from him.
He goes down and he does was it Pedro with Barcelona who like looked through the fingers, or was that Sergio Busquets?
It might have been Busquets.
But he does something similar to that, where Bonucci goes down and he kind of like holds his face but watches the play happen, and then as soon as the ball goes in the net, he sort of rolls back over and covers his face as though he's been punched in the head.
I think he's thinking, my best chance of defending this goal now is to pretend I've been hit really hard here.
Yeah, but it's especially damning because you talked about that knockdown from Morata, but the key thing there was that he knocks it down into Bonucci, who's laying on the ground.
On the floor,
and that's why Jimenez.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's Bonucci trying to sell it a little bit, and maybe I think he doesn't do that if there isn't VAR. But given that there's already been the penalty that was given but then called back because VAR said it was outside the box correctly.
Right,
and I would say the disallowed Morata goal as well, which we can discuss later on. I think maybe Bonucci thinks, if I sell this, it's going to look like I got punched in the face, and they're going to call it back because of VAR.
And worth noting, disallowed for similar reasons.
Yes.
Right? But still, the better thing would have been, don't go down.
Yeah.
Get up and defend the ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if you kind of like go through that, and again, it did not look to me like he got poked in the eye or punched in the face. It was contact to the face for sure.
On a cheekbone.
But it certainly doesn't necessitate you going down like you've been shot. And I think he definitely could have at least tried to defend. But I do think when you've got VAR there, if you're making that decision of, do I try to fight through this one and maybe get beat, or do I go down and make it look like I've been punched, and then on VAR they overturn it?
Yeah.
Maybe you err on the side of VAR.
All right, the second goal is not too long afterwards.
It is 5 minutes after. I think Juve get 3 touches, one of which was kickoff. I think they like clear it once and clear it again, and both times Atleti just come right back at him.
Diego Godin has the ball in the back of the net. So it's a free kick in the end, right?
It's a handball for Khedira, I think.
There we go. Oh, yeah, it's headed into his hand by a teammate, right? So cross comes in. Godin meets it, I would say, sort of at the near post and flicks it on in what we think is a designed play.
Yes.
Right? And it's going to be towards the strikers, towards Morata. Maybe Griezmann's in there as well.
Oh, no, Griezmann delivers it. So it's Griezmann plays the free kick, but I think it's designed to be flicked on towards the top of the 6-yard box where there should be runners advancing, and it just causes that next level chaos where it could even be turned in. Mandzukic ends up getting a foot to it, but he could have just as easily put into his own net.
So he's like a sliding block that Mandzukic gets, so he just does what he can, I think.
Yep.
But all he ends up doing is kind of popping it back up to Diego Godin again, who... so the keeper, Chesney, who's actually had a very good game, right? Made some nice saves.
2 big saves, yeah.
But he's already dived to his right because he thinks that Godin header is possibly going towards goal before Mandzukic blocks it.
Yep.
So the entire near side is wide open as if Roman Berkey was in goal.
Yeah. I made a joke about Roman Berkey near post when you weren't here. I missed you.
I've been listening.
But
so Godin strikes it, I think, outside of the foot. It's a little...
He does that like the ninja kick.
Yeah.
Like the kind of wind-up kick in midair.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you that the near post is open because Szczesny has gone the other way. But I would say it's not completely open because Cristiano Ronaldo comes across to try to make a defensive play. And this is where, I said this before we started recording, if this were DeAndre Yedlin, we would lose our minds. Because it's
when this was DeAndre Yedlin, we did lose our minds.
Yes. But
Sorry, DeAndre.
It's the jumping, turning the back. He covers his face. It's everything you don't want to see. And it ends up deflecting off of him and going into the goal. And I have to believe that if he just runs out and puts a body on that one and kind of stands it up, it deflects off of him and goes out for a corner.
Yep.
And maybe it's not that big of a difference, but I do think 1-0 better than 2-0. Yep. So, I mean, unless you're Atleti. But I think Ronaldo turning his back on this one, not necessarily his fault entirely because there's a lot of things that go wrong and a lot of kind of chaos in the box. But he certainly could have done a little bit better defensively on this one.
Yeah, I guess that's never been his strong suit, right? You've never thought of him like, he gets back in the box and makes loads of defensive plays.
He's got to protect the moneymaker. Can't take a shot to the face. That won't work.
Should we talk about the Morata header?
Yeah.
Just before, it's not really the header, is it? It's the push.
Yes. For the disallowed goal?
Yeah, so Morata nearly has this at 1-0. He's come off the bench for Diego Costa, who's done mostly fine, right? Doing some very Diego Costa things.
Very Diego Costa things,
yes. Like running into Szczesny, for
example. That was lovely. He has one where he kind of bumps into Allegri and has a little bit of a word. Yes. He had a few different Diego Costa moments. He will be suspended, by the way, which means Morata, I would say.
He got the yellow for encroachment.
And then Thomas Partey, suspended as well, so we believe Thomas Lemar will then start the next leg.
Which is actually pretty good replacements for
I would say so.
Right? You've got Thomas Lemar to come in, and then you've got Alvaro Morata, who, when this goal was disallowed, I really thought, he just broke 100 mirrors at some point, and things are never going to go right for Alvaro Morata. The fact that he gets the sort of assist later on, I think vindicates his game.
Yeah? Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it was one where we disagreed in the moment. I definitely thought that this goal should have stood. It didn't seem like it was that bad of a push. We've watched it a bunch more. I do think that watching it 1,000 times on like super slow motion replay, it makes it look that much worse because anything in super slow mo, you can see the contact that much more. It does look worse. But I am inclined to say that this is correctly disallowed in the end. Yes,
because there is pushing and shoving whenever crosses come in. But normally you do like a quick chicken wing or a little hip check or just a very
You do a Diego Costa.
Bruce Lee, only 1 inch extension type push. Or
1 inch punch.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what Morata does is a full 2-arm extension, or at least 1.5 arm extension. It's too much. It's too obvious. And I think, unlike Bonucci, Chiellini had no choice but to go down here. He is physically pushed to the ground by Morata in a way that's really obvious.
Well, I would say he doesn't have a choice, is the difference there. Is that I think Chiellini, there's no way that Chiellini thought, I better just dive to the ground on the off chance that this gets called back for VAR. I think if you watch it, there's 2 key components here for me. Is that I initially thought it was just one hand. It was like a one-hand push. And so to me, that looked like Morata was sort of putting his hand on, like, I'm gauging where you are, the other
just
person is.
My personal space, kind of,
you pointed out, and you were correct on when we finally got a good angle on it, it was very clearly 2 hands, not just the one. But the other thing that I think is important here is that sort of contact, shove or contact, whatever you want it to be, it happens when Chiellini is sort of stepping in an awkward way so that his feet are very close together. And it's like the, what are they, the AT-ATs? The walkers in Empire Strikes Back. When you get the feet too close together, they go falling down. And here I think it's the same thing, that Chiellini, his feet are together as that push happens, and that's why he is completely off balance and kind of goes flying. Because at first I was like, he's exaggerating. And then I thought, well, he has no reason to exaggerate. There's no way he thinks, this is going to get called back so I can sell it. And I think the other very, very damning thing about this. Watch it again. Morata 100% looks around almost comically like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah,
Are you sure? Okay, I'll go celebrate then.
He looks like he walked out the store and the alarm went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If you're going to do it, just keep walking.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah, you just run off and celebrate. Diego Costa would not have hesitated. He would have just run off and celebrated and then maybe been furious when it got called back.
Waiting for the security guard to tackle him.
Yeah. So I think at first I was sort of more critical of that decision, but watching it again a couple times, I think it's correctly disallowed. And maybe it was
another
because
win for centre-backs.
I think maybe in the moment I also wanted Atleti to get that goal, and so I was not even because I was rooting for Atleti, but because I felt like that made it more interesting. Then Juve really had to try to get something, and I think that's the other really revealing thing about this game is that even though this goal is disallowed, the first goal happens 8 minutes later. Juve didn't really change anything up. I mean, they made substitutions and everything.
Bernardeschi for Dybala, just another guy to go be frustrated on the wing.
And there's injuries to consider here for Juve. They didn't have much in the way of attacking substitutions, and so I think this was a lineup that Allegri kind of had to put together. Maybe he could have done a little bit better, but it was really revealing to me that even after the first goal, you don't see Juve really going for it, and it ends up being 2-0 really quickly because it is sort of Juve on the heels. I think a little bit surprised by the way things have gone and how everybody just kind of roam all over the place and see what happens tactic didn't work.
So 2-0. Second leg's going to be at Juve, obviously. It's going to be really interesting to see. We assume Atleti's tactics will be basically the same, right? They've just got to defend in that disciplined, tight, compact, narrow 4-4-2, hit you on the counter, do really well on set pieces. Juve need a plan. So it will at least be interesting to see if Allegri can come up with something that finds a way to help Ronaldo break through against Atleti.
Yep.
And maybe Dybala and some other players, because I think that would be the most sensible way to go, right?
Yeah, I think
use your
so.
whole team.
Maybe use a couple players. Yeah. I don't see why not. So we've got that to look forward to. We've got Schalke Man City, as you said, to talk about. But first, we should probably talk about today's sponsor.
Yep. Okay, so Juve made it too complicated. Buying tickets online used to be complicated and sometimes as confusing as Juve's tactical shape.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be with today's sponsor, SeatGeek.
SeatGeek buying tickets online can sometimes be too complicated. With hundreds of sites and varying levels of reliability, it can be a little bit difficult to know who to trust. That is not the case with SeatGeek. You can go there, you can see what's in your area, or if you want to travel a little bit, you can see what bands or acts you want to go
check
out.
World,
you could. You very well could. And you can find concerts, events, sports, whatever you want to go to. I also like to use it as a way to sort of check up on the teams that I nominally, peripherally care about. I tend to root for Washington teams, so I went and looked at prices to Wizards games versus Capitals games, and I can tell you, before I even looked at the standings...
Is there a game where the Wizards play the Caps?
There is not, but I was looking at Wizards ticket prices. Their next 3 games, you've got Pacers at Wizards, $12, Timberwolves at Wizards, $7, Dallas at the Wizards, $9. Then, they're 11th in the Eastern Conference are the Wizards. Not great.
Is the NBA doing okay?
I just think the Wizards aren't doing so great.
Okay.
Whereas the Caps, who are, I think, second in their division, even though they're playing their next 3 games at home are against the last place team, and the second last place team in different divisions. Those tickets are 85, 30, and 53. So that tells you're watching the Caps be good, you're watching the Wizards maybe be less good.
I'll be honest, though. I know the correct way to use SeatGeek is to find really good events to go to, like Caps games. But I think there is an element of bargain hunting that you can go for on SeatGeek.
You certainly could.
And I use this especially when I have, say, friends from England in town. I've got a lot of friends who just like the idea of American sports. So they'd say, could we go to an NBA game? And I'd be able to say, yes, we can. And with this app, it'll be quite cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you do have those Caps tickets that are maybe a little bit more pricey, there is a way to get them for a little bit less. Or
if instead of 12 you want to pay 2.
There we go. How can you do that?
TSS listeners can get $10 off their first SeatGeek purchase. You just download the SeatGeek app, you enter the promo code, say it with me, TSS.
I didn't say it with you.
I meant listeners.
Okay.
Promo code TSS for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show. Thank you to Daryl for being back to do the ad reads with me. It's always a welcome change. Now, shall we talk Man City's, I'm going to say surprise victory over Schalke, given the way things went.
Yeah, that's a weird sentence.
It sure is.
Because going into this game, if I was told that Manchester City would go away to Schalke in the first leg and win 3-2, you kind of think, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's okay. But if you'd been told that it was 2-1 to Schalke at half-time, and that in the 68th minute, I believe, Nicolas Otamendi would get his second yellow, so Man City would be down to 10 men. You would not have bet on Man City to win 3-2.
I absolutely would not have. And I do think City looked like fine from beginning to end. It was a weird game for them. I think at times they got a little bit too involved in like the physical aspect, and I think that's where Schalke were able to pull something back. But strangely, I think the red card almost freed them up a little bit to just do different stuff, and I think it had a big impact.
We got it wrong at the time, right? I remember we were sitting in studio, and I can't remember the name of it again, but I said to you that this was like the Star Trek thing that's the
Kobayashi Maru?
Yeah, so it's like a test that's supposed to be impossible to succeed unless you cheat, like, spoiler alert, Kirk does in the 2009 Star Trek movie.
I think it was always alluded to that he cheated, but I think that remake made it very clear that he cheated.
So going a man down and being 2-1 down away from home was like the Kobayashi Maru test for Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, I think that's the difference, is that Starfleet never counted on Pep Guardiola taking that test. He would have found a way to win because he would have demanded absolute perfection from everyone around him.
Yep. And so either Guardiola cheated, or, as you said, it was just a weird lucky thing that going down to 10 men forced a formation change, and that oddly worked for Man City because it shook things up.
It did. I'm going to take us off on a tangent here for a moment because I have to say this, like, you know how I think I've heard it said that there are way more psychopaths in the world than we know about. It's just they're not all violent, like, serial killers. Yeah. That a lot of CEOs are psychopaths. There's a theory that Michael Jordan is one. I would say that if I had to bet money, Pep Guardiola is one of those. Just because I don't understand how he can. Certainly, he gets involved in emotional situations, but in so many sequences in this game, we saw him while everybody else is complaining, he's already making changes. Yes. He's already making substitutions. He's adjusting the tactics.
Literally, as Nicolas Otamendi is still protesting that second yellow, Pep Guardiola is telling Vincent Kompany, please get up, get ready, you're going in. He's getting the subboard ready. He's already rearranging the pieces.
To the extent that, like, Kompany, you can't see him because he's off camera, but you can see Guardiola, like, clearly pointing at him and saying, come over. And then I'm guessing Kompany has a momentary, like, me? You want me to come? And Guardiola just points at the field, like, what do you think has happened here? And again, it's like 3 seconds after the red card has happened. Yeah. He's that on it. And I just think to be able to, in that moment, recognize exactly what needs to change and how it needs to change and to make it happen is such an amazing aspect of what makes him such a good coach.
Because when they get the equaliser through, I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably know what happened, right? Leroy Sané hits that insane free kick, which we'll definitely talk about in detail. As soon as that equaliser happens, he's already then talking to, I believe, Zinchenko, who is coming on, getting new tactical instructions for how to play the last 5-10 minutes of this game. So it's almost like there's no room for celebrating, no room for arguing. It's just tweaks and tactics and getting things right.
And even like I think, and
so we're getting a bit Pep fanboy here.
I'm fine with it.
Pass the Kobayashi Maru test.
I mean, I'm fine with it, and I am not a Pep fanboy. But like another example for me was then Vincent Kompany comes in. It is David Silva who comes out. I wanted to make sure I had the right Silva. There were many, many Silvas today. 2
Silvas, 2 Sanes.
Yeah, yes, but I think even who's the Alexandro? I think he is actually a Silva as well, which makes it even more confusing. Yes, I think his last name is Silva. So again, too many. But when David Silva comes out, it's like a delayed thing where he subs out and he's kind of walking to the bench and no one is there. And then the assistants come running up and high-five him. But it's because Guardiola is not even concerned with his captain has just come off and clearly looks angry. Yeah. He's like, yeah, that's what's happening right now. I'm coaching. I don't care about you. And just his ability to like compartmentalize and remove himself from like telling his player he had a good game, and instead these are the adjustments we have to make. That's how you find a way to come back and win.
So let's talk big picture but detailed. What was wrong with Man City's initial approach, and why did going down to 10 men help? Because I believe it when I said it, but I find it quite hard to put into words. I'm kind of hoping you can dig me out of this hole.
I think this is what I was trying to say earlier, is that I don't think anything was wrong with City's approach. I think from kickoff, they were all over Schalke, and it felt
3-2-4-1?
Yeah, exactly. And it felt like when we went back and rewatched this, I thought they went ahead in like the 6th minute. It ended up being the 18th minute, but it felt like that because they were all over them, and it felt like even when Schalke had their super, like a 5-4-1 super defensive, City were still finding their way through and still wall passing their way through. So I think they really were playing the game they wanted to play. As I said, I think it's just that Schalke occasionally found their way to bypass that pressure from City, get the ball into City's half.
A lot
and
of
then
long balls for Weston McKennie to win in the air.
True, very true. But then I think it started with that. There started being more physical confrontations, not like fights, but if you're going up for a 50-50 challenge, there's going to be some knocks in the air, there's going to be some whistles blown.
Yeah.
And even I think right before Schalke get their first penalty, the commentator was saying, like, City need to calm down, they're getting too involved in the physicality, both teams need to settle down. And I think that benefits Schalke, because once you've got City just flying into challenges and trying to be physical, they're no longer focused on that kind of free-flowing, one-touch, effortless passing. And now they're sort of shifting what they're doing, and I think that allows Schalke to get on the front foot a little bit more, get their fans behind them, and then get some penalties.
Okay, before we get to the goals, so maybe we go through the goals chronologically.
Sure.
I think would be an interesting way to do it. I do want to talk about Weston McKennie.
Sure.
So for Schalke, he played it, on, I would say, the right side of the midfield four in a 5-4-1, which meant you saw him sort of oddly play almost central sometimes because those four would get so narrow. But also he got up and down the flank a lot as well. It weirdly, in a sort of boring Domenico Tedesco, we're just going to get numbers behind the ball kind of way, it was a well-suited thing for Weston McKennie. Yeah. It suited his his talents.
His dynamism.
Yes.
His shifting from a number 8 to a number 10, as Greg Berhalter said in the pre-match.
Yes.
Yeah. I think he did. And I think he was probably the one in that midfield four, who was given the most freedom to roam and get forward.
He would join Oot sometimes, just briefly. And they wanted to even pretend to be attacking, and then he'd come back and play right mid.
But I think that makes sense, because if you're trying to sort of stifle City's creativity through the center of the field, then you don't want those two central midfielders in that midfield four to go drifting and try to get into the attack. You want them sitting and sort of shielding that back line.
Yeah.
So then it's always going to be those two wide midfielders who are going to give you more options when it comes to the attack.
Bentaleb and Serdar, the two centre mids, they really stayed centre mid, right? So it's almost like an empty bucketish type deal.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about McKennie for at least one of Schalke's goals, right? He has a very important role to play. Let's do this chronologically. You ready? So, 18th minute. Sergio Aguero scores. A square pass from Bernardo Silva. An absolute horror show from Schalke's defence.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say their defence. I would just say the goalkeeper. That's really it.
Furman. Yes.
Yeah, because ball goes back to him. I think he's looking for Sané, right? Is that who he's trying to find?
So Salif Sané is the centre-back for Schalke.
Not Leroy Sané.
He was the centre-back of the three centre-backs. Leroy Sané at this point is on the bench.
To be fair, if he had passed it to Leroy Sané, it would have had the same results. So, but yeah, I think he's... And
at least the ball would have been out of bounds.
That's true. It was a shaky start to the game, and it was a shaky conclusion to the game for Farman, because it was, I think he has the worm burner in like the first minute where I don't think it was intentional. It ends up going to a Schalke player.
We lost a lot of good worms.
Yeah, he just drills that ball, and I don't think that was supposed to happen. He is the one where he should slide out and collect it with his hands, and instead he goes 2-footed into the ball. It was some strange decisions. This one, it was culminating in this strange decision. He tries to play it to Sané, kind of a hospital pass, and Sané isn't. We watched this a bunch of times. He's not calling for the ball, but he's also not telling him pass it elsewhere, don't give it to me. But he's definitely not set for that ball to come. You can see him sort of have to react and get up on his toes because he's looking around there's no way this ball is coming to me. What would be the purpose of that? And it seems like the purpose was for him to be immediately dispossessed by Bernardo Silva.
Yes. Here's my take on this, is I think because Furman's not that good with his feet, he has the classic sort of non-great soccer player thing of looking down at the ball before he plays it. So he receives the ball, he looks up, I think he sees Salif Sané somewhat available. He looks down, and I think he's looking down at the ball so long. That's when Bernardo Silva gets the jump on Salif Sané. So by the time Furman looks up and plays it, Silva's already closed about 7 yards, and he's ready to pounce before Sané can get the ball.
And I do think Schalke were maybe trying to do a little bit of what Bayern did to Liverpool yesterday, which was move the ball around a little bit. They did try to play it out of the back. They went short on their goal kicks the majority of the time when it was on. And sometimes when it wasn't.
Is that because Furman can't kick it long?
He could kick it long on occasion, just not all that often. But I do wonder if maybe they were trying to kind of bait that Man City press into coming forward, and then they get numbers forward, and then they hit long, and that's when they can kind of go for a smash and grab goal. But in this case, I think he overthinks it, or maybe he just takes his eye off the ball for a second and then panics, plays it to Sané. But again, Sané is kind of static. Bernardo Silva is the opposite of static and kind of nicks the ball off, squares it to Sergio Aguero, tap-in goal. Schalke protest, a quote-unquote foul that had happened in the build-up, but there was no foul.
There was nothing there. And he did look for all the word like Man City were about to turn this into a 4-0 win.
In that moment, I think we both were like, well, that's that. Like, we were both ready for that to be 4-0. Let's just focus on Atleti Juve.
And then by halftime, we were saying, wait, how did Schalke come back around and score 2 penalties?
And the answer is VAR.
The answer is VAR? Right.
I mean, not really. I guess he called the second one, he called like as it happened.
Yeah.
The first one, I think the referee followed protocol in that I think he thought it maybe was a handball, but you let the sequence play out, then you go back to VAR, and you give the penalty when it's on.
No, the first one was the handball. The Nicolas Otamendi
That's what I'm saying.
handball is
the first one was the one where I think he even if he saw the handball, I think he kind of followed what they're advised on, which is let it go out for the corner, but then we'll review it. Don't call the handball right away.
All right, so before we get to that, Weston McKennie's heavily involved. He really is. I think he's heavily involved in this Schalke counterattack in that he kind of screws up.
Yep.
Where he tries to lay the ball off.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a bad pass.
It's a bad pass. He tries to lay it off, gives the ball away. Kevin De Bruyne is on the counter-attack
now
for
he's being a
City.
fanboy. You feel so uncomfortable saying a negative thing about Weston McKennie.
Well, because
my goodness.
A great thing's about to happen.
Yeah.
Kevin De Bruyne is leading a counter-attack for Manchester City, probably one of the most dangerous players in the world to be doing so. I think McKennie, in a weird way, realises what he's done and does everything possible to make up for it.
Yeah.
And manages to catch up to De Bruyne, and I think take him by surprise, kind of step across him, take the ball, and counter.
Yeah.
And away he goes up the other way. Does he just dribble forward, gives it to a teammate who then gives it to Caligiuri?
He gives it to Uth, who gives it to Caligiuri.
Yeah, so it is a really good moment from McKennie. It's an even better moment from Caligiuri.
I'm not just trying to be contrarian here, but if you have a very bad moment followed by a very good moment, I'm going to say that balances out to a good moment.
But if it ends in a goal, it's a net positive.
Yeah, but it ends in a penalty. Either way.
It's not exactly an assist.
No, so then Caligiuri cuts inside, gets the shot off. Definitely.
Does his Arjen Robben.
He does.
Because I think all those Man City players are ready for a right-footed cross from
that's probably what happens.
He cuts back and shoots. Yeah.
He does. And then there's 7 minutes of delay or 6 minutes of delay.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not really sure why it took so long. And then the official never goes over and actually looks at the monitor. So I think he's just waiting the whole time. And maybe because it's the first incident, he's trying to calm everybody down. He calls the captains over. That seemed unnecessary. But either way, in the end, the penalty's given, and Nabil Bentaleb finishes that penalty quite well.
So this Caligiuri shot definitely hits Nicolas Otamendi in his left arm, right? That deflects the ball off target because it was on target. Why was there such a delay? Why did this need multiple looks? It seems to me, I can't really think of a good reason why it's such a big decision.
I mean, all I can figure is that he, the official, is surrounded by players screaming at him. And I think he's trying to listen to the people who are in the booth reviewing it while trying to have everybody calm down. He doesn't want it to boil over. So I think it's a lot of him talking to the players and then trying to listen to what people are saying. And so I think he's doing both at once.
Yeah.
Maybe that slows the whole process down. Then he calls the captains over, as I said, and I think that slows it down because I think he's trying to effectively communicate because maybe the briefing is it's the first usage of VAR at this level or this round is. So maybe he's just trying to make sure that everybody knows what's happening, but it still feels like that one took too long.
Yeah, and let me rephrase the question. Why VAR at all? Why isn't it just, that's obviously a handball. That's obviously a penalty kick. Let's let Bentaleb step up.
I think it's what I said. I think it's that like in the same way that they're if they think if it's a questionable offside, they're supposed to let it play on. Then they can always go back and review, but they don't want to stop a play that could end up in a goal and then be wrong. And I think maybe this is that as well, where he thinks it's a handball, but let the normal play go. Then it goes out for the corner. Now we can stop once the play is dead, and then we can review it. I think that's why he does it.
But is it not as obvious as I think it is? It seems to me his arm's way out there. It hits him in the arm. It's not like his arm's really nicely tucked in and there's a debate that maybe he's not gaining an advantage.
I think it
doesn't look like there's no weird angle where maybe that hit him in the chest. It just definitely hit him in the arm and his arm was definitely out there.
I think you're forgetting that we've watched this 100 times now on different replays.
Yeah.
He saw it once. And so I think with that it was like a 60 mile an hour shot that hit a guy's hand.
Yeah,
and there's a question of were his hands in an unnatural position? Does he try to move the hand to block the ball? Is it just an unfortunate situation? So I think all that has to be considered if you're that official.
Yeah.
All that said, I still think it takes too long, but they end up getting it right, so I guess it doesn't really matter that much.
Let's briefly talk about Nabil Bentaleb's face.
Sure.
So I thought, he looked nervous. On the replay, I think he looks confident. And that's just after knowing that he scores it. Obviously, it's a lot easier to think he looks confident. I think he just had a weird look in his eye stepping up to strike this penalty.
I mean, I think it's called in the 33rd minute. He takes the penalty in the 38th, and so maybe it's just the case that he's kind of standing around. Even if it takes a couple minutes for it to be eventually like awarded, there's definitely 2 minutes when City are still protesting, and he's just standing there waiting to take it.
Maybe.
And so I do think that maybe that's part of it, is that he's just not trying to give anything away, betray any emotion, or betray any sort of indication of where he's going to take the penalty.
Yeah. In the end, what, bottom right, lower right?
Yep, bottom right. Ederson dives the wrong way.
Yep.
And then the second one, Ederson drives the right way, but it's still in the goal.
Let's talk the second one.
Sure.
So Schalke win a free kick, sort of centre to the right. It ends up being a penalty kick awarded for Fernandinho, basically grabbing the hips of Salif Sane, who's trying to get on the end of I think a Caligiuri cross, trying to get his head to it.
Yeah.
Fernandinho's called for essentially pulling back Salif Sane.
Yes.
Right?
And we watched it. It's a little confusing because it's not a quickly taken free kick, but it sort of is at the same time, because there's a lot of time for the ball to be positioned, then the referee backs everybody up, then he talks to 2 or 3 City players who were complaining about the foul being given.
Yes.
And then
they're in their heads at this point, right?
I think
they're
so.
too busy complaining about calls when they should be just defending.
And and then maybe it's also like, this is complete speculation, but it's basically as soon as the whistle is blown to say, like, you can take it now, they take that free kick.
Yeah.
And City, by contrast, we saw them do a bunch of different designed set pieces, and they're big fans.
Really nice ones.
True.
Yeah.
But they're big fans of that, like the one, like the first guy runs up and stops like he's going to take it, and then the second guy comes. And I just wonder if maybe they assumed there would be some sort of trickery.
Yeah, because they did have, Schalke had Oshipka, I believe is the left back's name. We'll talk about him later.
Sure.
I did not say Siri, I said Oshipka. Oshipka, the left back, he's standing over it with Caligiuri, so you've definitely got left footer, right footer standing over it. And I think everyone knows that that's happening, right? So maybe Man City are expecting what you said, where maybe the left footer runs up, backs off.
Yeah.
Instead, the left footer just like takes a step back and the right footer comes and bangs in a real fast cross.
Yep.
Man City were already doing the thing where instead of lining up on the 18-yard line,
I'll never understand this.
they were a couple yards ahead of the 18-yard line. And I think just that quickness allowed Schalke to get in behind. And at that point, all the Man City defenders are playing catch-up. And that's why Fernandinho is almost like forming a choo-choo train by grabbing onto Salif Sane's hips instead of being goal side of him like you're supposed to do properly when you're defending.
When it's taken, I don't think Fernandinho has his hands on his hips, but he is standing completely flat-footed so that when it's taken, Sane is already a yard ahead of him, and all he can do is kind of grab the hips. I'm not even sure if the grab was necessarily enough to take him down, but then if you watch it again, there's definitely a tangle of legs. The ankle gets knocked, so there's contact there as well. But the official, to his credit, is in very good position, watches this the whole way, and gives that penalty immediately.
It's a bit like the Morata on Chiellini thing, right? You just make it too obvious and too much. Like, there's a lot of hip grabbing in soccer, but the trick is to like do it quick and then let go.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Fernandinho just holds on a little too long.
Yeah.
It's clingy.
Yeah.
Clingy Fernandinho.
As soon as you see the material on the jersey move, that's when you're like, ooh, you've held onto that a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Yep.
And up steps Bentaleb again. Top left this time. I don't think Ederson gets a hand to it.
I think he does. I think he gets a hand to it. I think it's like middle left and ends up top left because there's a hand to it. But I have to believe that Ederson thought that's where Bentaleb takes the penalties, was to that side, because he dove there the exact same spot both times. Second time, I think he gets a hand to it, but it doesn't really matter because it's so well hit with such power. Again, hit the penalty hard, and things will happen.
And then you certainly had our attention for the second half.
Yeah.
Schalke and Norfia, knowing that you're 2-1 up against Manchester City and Weston McKennie's on the field. And then all kinds of things go wrong, right? Including, I genuinely think this is important, Weston McKennie gets injured and stays on the field a little too long.
Yeah, I'd say like 15 minutes too long. It's pretty obvious that he's in discomfort. He continues to play, but
it's
even
a kick in the groin, doing a classic McKennie thing where he's charging down a lost course, jumps and stretches, and Laporte, I believe, follows through and kicks him in the groin.
Exactly. Yes, groin area is how I'll say that. I'm still not entirely sure where he gets kicked.
Worse.
Either way, I'm pretty sure it hurts a lot. But I mean, after that, you see him moving with discomfort, even when he goes to challenge
Maybe
for headers.
that's what Simeone was talking about.
That could be. But even when like McKinney goes for headers, he comes down, stands up, and you can see him. It just takes him a second or a half second longer to get back into gear, and he's just a little bit slower.
It's a bit like lopsided as well, right? You know, when someone's gait is not quite correct, one stride is longer than the other. There's definitely something wrong.
And there's and when he was walking afterward, like you could see that kind of deliberate step of he felt very confident taking a step with one foot, but maybe not the other.
Yeah.
So he probably should have gone. That said, when he does eventually sub off, they're still 2-1 up. So as I think many people tweeted, I think American Outlaws maybe were the first ones. Weston McKennie did beat Man City. It's just Schalke then failed to deliver.
I hope that's recorded on the UEFA score sheet.
I think it should be. But it's also, so with everything we've said, I mean, it did feel like, okay, Schalke have this now. City, I think I said in the moment when the substitution started happening for City, like, they're just trying to do damage control. That they're taking off Sergio Aguero. The commentators were confused by that one as well. And it felt like they're just trying to like sit back, make sure we don't like concede another one, and then we go back home 2-1 away, or 2-2 or 2-1 away is not that bad of a score. But I think in retrospect, and actually I think we figured this out as we got closer and closer to the end of the game, is that really it was another good adjustment from Guardiola, because it basically allowed that front three that they eventually had to kind of just have free reign to go try stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk about we gestured at this earlier, right? When they went down to 10 men, Nicolas Otamendi gets a yellow, I assume, for the penalty kick. Gets a second yellow for a clumsy foul on Bergstaller, who's come off the bench and done a really nice mid-air Cruyff turn that totally fooled Otamendi. He went in reckless, got his second yellow, gets sent off. So City were in that 3-2-4-1, which had a lot of width, a lot of De Bruyne and Silva moving around, Aguero just in front of them. And changes it to, brings on Vincent Kompany, and we saw Vincent Kompany do with his fingers 4-4-1.
Yep.
Right? Which I don't think fully does it justice, because I would call it a 4-2-3.
Yes. Well,
fair?
It's fair after a couple minutes. And again, this is where I think Guardiola again makes an adjustment, because he brings on Kompany. And as we said, though, it was kind of a scramble of, I think Kompany didn't realize he was about to go on. He comes in, he switches really fast, he runs on and does the 4-4-1.
Yeah.
But then they look very disjointed, and it felt like City were really scrambling at that point, and that was where I think we both thought, they're just trying to hold on. And I think then you have that other change of Aguero comes off, and you have the front three now of Sané, Sterling, and Silva.
Yeah.
And I really think that was the change they needed, because then I think people were a little bit more familiar with where they needed to be.
Yep.
And as I said, that front three, I think, were basically told, don't worry about defense, go do stuff.
Yeah, and then you had Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne held it as the double pivot and didn't get forward too much and just let that front three go for it, essentially. And the result is Leroy Sané with an incredible free kick from about 30 yards out, right?
Yeah.
I guess we should pause on that and really talk about it, because that's a special hit.
Yeah, it is.
Especially enough that I would argue, for all the mistakes Furman made, this wasn't one of them.
Nah.
For all the defensive mistakes, actually they didn't make that many defensive mistakes, but for any defensive mistake Schalke made, the wall does nothing wrong. Everything's perfectly positioned. But even when you're perfectly positioned, there is a certain spot and a certain angle where if you can hit it just right, it's impossible to stop. I really think that's what we're looking at with this Leroy Sané free kick.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, because he does the instep punch where he tries to limit his follow through as much as you can. That's what gives it that knuckle that gets it up and down as fast as it does.
And so it rolls end over end, right? Instead of curving.
And I think it still then tings off the underside of the bar. So even then, I think, there's nothing Farman can do about that one. Sané doesn't celebrate because, as we know, Schalke, former team.
Yes.
But it's a pretty incredible hit. And it felt like in that moment, we kind of felt like, ooh, Schalke might be in trouble here. Schalke might be in a lot of trouble to hold on to this one. And that was pretty much how it played out.
Yeah. Do you think the emotion of having your former player come back and do that to you plays into it at all, or just any equaliser?
I think it's an equaliser from City in that times, because it's like 85th is late in the game.
It's 85th.
Thank you. Okay, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't. But I think when you've been kind of holding on and suddenly you're ahead and they're a man down, you're beating Man City, and they're a man down, you've got to feel like, okay, we've got this, we can hold on. And I think City really grew into it. I think Schalke sat back and just tried to protect. Yeah, and I think they didn't really cause City any problems past a certain point in the second half, and I think City were then allowed to kind of dictate the flow of the game. And so when that goal happens, there's that feeling of, we're not getting another goal. The best we can hope for at this point is a 2-2 draw.
With 2 away goals conceded.
Yeah.
Turns out 3 away goals conceded, because in the 90th minute, Ederson, the goalkeeper, has the ball at his feet. Raheem Sterling has gone from centre, drifted out to the right, matched himself up with Oshipka, and gestured for the ball. Ederson, diagonal ball that's perfect, right? Sort of over the head of the left back into Sterling's path after a little tangle.
Yep.
But the point I'm trying to make is this is definitely a deliberate play by Ederson.
I mean,
right?
forgive me if you already said this. I was focusing on the spelling of Oshipka's name. But did you already mention that Sterling had the hand in the air? He is calling for that ball. Yep. And so the commentator's like, oh, it's a hopeful ball forward. It is not a hopeful ball forward. The way they've set up, the way they've spread the field, it is Sane standing on the other touchline. Raheem Sterling has come to the right side touchline if you're Man City. And he is isolated the defenders to the point where I think that ball is a deliberate over-the-top one-on-one situation.
And it's something that maybe Oshipka should have dealt with, right? There's definitely an opportunity for him to just hold off Raheem Sterling, use his head, literally and figuratively, head this out for a throw-in or what have you. I think what happens is Raheem Sterling maybe does yoga or Pilates or something, and Oshipka underestimates the core strength of Raheem Sterling because he tries to back in and hold position, and he just bounces off of Sterling.
I mean, he does. I honestly think that it's good. It's a good work from Sterling to settle and get the finish. Obviously,
yeah.
I think we haven't talked about it as much, but it's just an amazing ball from Ederson. I mean, that's an 80, 90 yard ball that I'm thinking about again. I don't know what else Oshipka really could have done because it's in the air. He's tracking it the whole way. It's not like he's focused on Raheem Sterling. It's not like he's trying to shepherd it out of bounds. I think he's just trying to make a play on it. I think Sterling has a little bit better position because he's on the outside, so that then Oshipka can't really adjust and kind of move further over. So he has to try to make a play and ends up falling over because he gets that little bump.
Yep.
But even then, when you watch it,
I guess is the only possible.
Yeah, I think so. Again, don't go down and then look for the foul. But I think for a second, I thought maybe Sterling gave him an intentional little shove. But if you watch it, it's Sterling watching the ball the whole way. He's just trying to make a play, and he does. And then I think maybe gets a little bit of a fortunate touch because it goes off, we think, his left pectoral.
Yeah.
And then that
I'm
is
going to say nipple, left nipple.
But that's what controls it. But I think that's also what throws off Farman again because with the sheer length of that kick, I think the natural thought is, even if they don't control this, it's going to bounce and go out for a goal kick. There's no way. And so I think that partially explains the strange angle Farman takes.
Yeah, a lot of focus was on it. I mean, correctly, he is so far out of his goal and at such a weird angle that he takes a lot of blame for essentially gifting the far side of the goal. You know, it's weird to leave your near post open. Farman's so gone too far past his near post that he's left the far post open, which is a very weird thing for a goalkeeper to do.
And I would say it's so open that this is, again, if you didn't see it, it's like City going down their right-hand side. Raheem Sterling gets it on that side and finishes with his right foot into the far corner with his instep. It's not an outside of the foot bender. No, that's how bad the positioning was. But again, I think that's because Farman thinks, I'll slide out, I'll kind of catch this, or I'll let it go out for a goal kick.
Or just body Sterling a little bit and shepherd this out.
And then suddenly realizes, oh no, this ball has been under control, and now I am in big, big trouble.
So it's just that slight touch from Sterling, right, that just redirects it enough to have Farman completely exposed. Well, the goal completely exposed. Essentially. Yeah.
And I think the commentators were themselves confused because when Sterling scores, I think it takes a second or two, and then they're like, oh, it's gone in. And it's like, that play was developing.
They were having a separate conversation because they thought that ball was bouncing out for a goal.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Maybe they're not wrong, but also pay attention. Pay attention, Ray Houghton.
But it does feel like Raheem Sterling is once again suddenly unplayable, and that's how it felt throughout this game. That he was just every time he got the ball, he was more than happy to go at people, to cause problems, to pull defenders out of position, and I felt like it was yet another very good game from him in what has been a very good season for Raheem Sterling.
Yep, all right, and a great win for Manchester City.
Here's one thing I have a question about, though, before we move on. Is so Otamendi gets the second yellow, which means obviously he's suspended for the next game.
Yeah.
But I believe I am correct in saying that when he picked up the first yellow, that would have already meant he was suspended because of yellow card accumulation. So I don't know the rule there. I don't know if he's suspended for 2 games because he already would have been suspended for 1 and then he gets the red, or if it's just accumulation means he's out for the game and then he's back for what will likely be their next round opponent.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 games now because there's points and points and points, right?
I suppose we shall see.
All the yellow card accumulations rack up disciplinary points.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, though.
I will not.
Yeah, probably shouldn't have said it into a microphone without being sure. Okay, so a home win for Atletico Madrid, an away win for Manchester City. Both those teams are going to be looking good in the second leg.
I would say so.
We'll be watching those second legs via today's other sponsor, BR Live.
We will indeed.
You may have heard us mention this yesterday. BR Live is now a sponsor of the Total Soccer Show. We want to let you know that if you want to stream these games, BR Live is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Because you've got the main game obviously is going to be on TNT. You can watch that on TV. But if you want to watch that other game, if you were really excited to see what McKinney does, you could have watched BR Live to see that stream. But then the other thing is once you get to Europa League, which is tomorrow, I don't have the number of fixtures directly in front of me, but I believe I'm correct in saying there's like 12 games going on simultaneously tomorrow. So then you're only going to have one on TV. I'm going to assume that's like Arsenal Bate. Maybe it's going to be Chelsea Malmo, something like that.
None on TV.
None on TV. There you go.
UEFA Europa League is only available via BR Live.
There we are.
Yes.
So that means that you can catch any one of those many, many games on BR Live. I plan to do that because there are a few enticing fixtures.
One worth keeping an eye on is, I think, Valencia versus Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
Celtic obviously have Timo Weah. They are 2-0 down from the first leg.
Mm-hmm.
I think they subbed Weah on after they were already 2-0 down. So he has, much like McKennie against Man City, Weah bears no blame for the 2 goals. But I'm hoping maybe Brendan Rodgers will start Weah and Celtic mount this big comeback
away, which will be a challenge
against Valencia. But it'd be kind of awesome to see Tim Weah in a sort of must-win European situation, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Put your faith in Timo Weah, Brendan Rodgers.
If you want to watch another American, you could watch the team that Jesse Marsh is probably going to end up coaching, RB Salzburg, play Club Brugge with Ethan Horvath, I would assume, starting in goal.
Yeah.
And then for me,
hopefully staying on his feet. Have you seen that clip?
No, I have not.
He falls over and then gets lobbed.
That's not good.
It's not.
That's not ideal. You never want to see that happen. You also don't want to see Galatasaray be eliminated. If you're me, they're going to Benfica, having lost the first leg at home 2-0.
All right.
So I'll be watching those, but there are many, many other games. As I said, all of those can be found on BR Live.
So you get the soccer pass, and for that you get all the Champions League games, all the Europa League games, you get Scottish Premiership games, you get all the UEFA Youth League games. Watch the next generation of talent like Conrad de la Fuente at Barcelona. Watch them in action in the UEFA Youth League. That is also at the knockout stage right now. Do you know your Champions League calendar?
For the next games?
Yeah.
No, I have
it's
no idea.
coming around fast. So we have next week is off. Week after that, the second legs start.
Okay.
So like the Man U PSG and the other game that was the same day. I want to say Porto Roma.
Yep. That sounds right.
I want to say it because I'm right. Yeah.
Really? We're already that?
Yeah,
wow.
because it's so staggered. You remember in the olden days, in olden times, it used to all happen at once.
Oh, yeah, round of 16, 8 games, 16 teams. Got
now
it.
It's a little bit more spread out, which means that it comes back around pretty quick as well. It's exciting times, right?
It is. Except, United 2-0 down going away to PSG.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm slightly concerned.
Not for Man United fans.
I'm slightly concerned.
Yeah, for everybody else.
You can find a way. Find a way to win. It'll be all right.
So, yes, get your subscription to BR Live. You can watch all that action.
You sure can.
What sort of action have we got coming up on the rest of the Total Soccer Show this week, Taylor?
I believe you and I are going to be doing some listener questions.
Yes.
That will probably be Friday, right?
Yes.
Because you've got procedure tomorrow. We talked about that yesterday.
I do. Oh, I'm not sure we mentioned this. Yeah, I'm having the port implanted on Thursday, so I'm going to be out of the office all day. It's a nice, easy outpatient procedure, but they don't let you do a podcast while you're having it done.
And that's so you can really increase your shipping? Is that what it is?
That's it, yes.
You want that port in there? Cool. All right, perfect. Yeah.
It's just in case anyone's wondering. It's
or is that a fancy way of saying that you're going to get drunk on port?
It is not. It is not. It's a little thing like to easily put needles in for chemo and things like that. Yeah, should make it all easier.
Mine were more fun.
Yeah, yours were more fun. Mine were accurate.
Yeah, so you'll be doing that.
It's the Total Soccer Show.
There we go. You'll be doing that Thursday. You'll be doing that, I say, as though it's a fun little thing
I'm
you're
not
going to be
doing
doing.
it. Surgeon's doing it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I would not advise doing that at home.
We worked out a deal.
You got the GoFundMe. You don't need to do the procedures yourself, man. So you'll be doing that. We'll either have an interview tomorrow or we'll just double up on some shows on Friday and then maybe do a show Sunday is what we're thinking about doing.
Because it's the Northwest Derby. The Liverpool-Manchester United. I believe it's Liverpool-Manchester United, 9 o'clock Sunday morning. Plan is to watch it in office and record straight afterwards. I can't see it not being a good game, he said, totally not jinxing it.
I mean, I'm nervous. I'll say that.
I'm just going to enjoy it.
I'm glad for you. I'm glad for you.
All right, so all that to come on the Total Soccer Show in the next few days. Any closing thoughts, Taylor, before I say the thing?
Yes, I don't know when the next round of the FA Cup is. I know it is going to be the TSS Derby.
It's like mid-March.
But I think we started talking about this last night, I believe, that maybe we're going to do something special for that one. I'm not sure if that means we'll do like like a live pregame and a live halftime, or maybe we'll just try to do we'll certainly do a quick take, hot take, some sort of reaction. But I think we'll try to up the level for that one.
I got some bad news for you.
What's that?
We don't know which day it is yet. It could be the same day as one of our league games that we have to play in.
Fine. We'll forfeit. It's okay.
It could be a DVR situation.
Maybe the team better will just avoid it, and then everybody can watch us watch it after the fact. That sounds terrible to me.
Should we do that? If we happen to be having to play at that time, we won't look at the score. We'll watch it as live so we can get the full emotional reaction.
We will try not to. I have a feeling that we'll know if Wolves do anything because our teammates will relish in mocking me and congratulating you.
We'll have to make it part of the pre-match team talk. Is the most important thing about today's game is don't tell Darryl and Taylor about the FA Cup score.
I hate trying to hide from scores.
Also remember to pressure over the halfway line.
Yes, that's a big one. But I really hate hiding from scores because then I overanalyze everything.
Terrible,
if someone's like, "Are you having a good day?" And I don't even know.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, my mom could text me and I could be like, "What do you mean? What do you know? What have you seen? What's happening? I'm scared now. I'm scared."
On that note of Taylor being scared, we will say thank you, Taylor Rockwell, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Suspiciously, right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We always appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon.